Hey, 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 happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, astonishingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard. Tonight is Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. This is live stream 797. If you're first time joining me, let me just point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then we'll normally look at a tabletop game. Tonight, however, I am going to share a rare live review. Yes, I know. I did a live review last night, so I guess it's not that rare. But prior to that, it had been quite a long time since I had shared a live review. So tonight we're going to dive on into Original Adventures Reincarnated, I should say, Volume 3, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks for Dungeons and Dragons. That's right. This includes the original module from 1980, as well as a 5th edition conversion. And we'll be jumping on into this in a bit. So if you are not familiar with the show, let me just point out that we begin with the tabletop gaming news, and then we move into the first look or review or what have you. So if you are tuning in because you want to take a peek at Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, please keep in mind it'll be about 30 minutes. So why not just kick your feet up, relax, check out the latest tabletop gaming news of the day. Of course, if you are watching 30 minutes or more after this stream ends, there will be timestamps. So you can find those timestamps in the show notes, or depending on the device you're using to watch this, might even be embedded right there in the timeline of the video. So if you want to jump ahead and not check out the news, although we got some cool news tonight, you can do so if you're watching after the fact. If you like this video, by all means, don't forget, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Central, right here on YouTube. Also let you know when I upload standalone videos, such as my review of Death in Space from Free League Publishing and Stockholm Cartel, and who was it? CHWP and Cosmic Gaze. Yes, there's all these people involved in this. So check it out, and it's the holograph cover. Woo! You'll probably get a kick out of the review. All right. Of course, I should mention, when you're not watching the videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you won't find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And finally, this is a live stream, so that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. One of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. Plus, you do have to be a subscriber to the channel for at least 48 hours to take part in chat. Yet another way that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. Although, while I'm doing the review, I don't really take a peek at chat too much because it'll throw me off. I'm just not bright enough to chew gum and walk at the same time. Don't know what to tell you. First out the gate tonight was Mr. Eddie T saying howdy. Simeon is with us once again. Sarah D, not lurking. She's just saying hello all. 245 Trioxin's with us. And so is James Eck. Very cool. Very nice. Welcome, everybody. It is a Wednesday evening here. It's been raining much of the day in the Chicago suburbs. So it's kind of, And of course, I had to run to the store. So I had to go get some food for the cats. And I was like, it's not coming down. It's just a little bit of rain. So, of course, as soon as I got to the store, the skies opened up. Like, yeah, of course. And I'm a man. I'm not going to sit there and be like, I'm going to wait in the car until it stops raining. No, I'm just like, whatever. So I got soaked. Kabuki Kid is joining us. It's been a while since we've seen Double K in the house. Welcome aboard. Good to see you. All right, let's jump on into the news because I've got a nice eclectic mix tonight. First off, now in stores from the OP is Disney Sorcerer's Arena Epic Alliances, the core set. I believe there's also an expansion that is out there as well. Here is the latest from the OP. Become the next master summoner in the Battle Arena game Disney Sorcerer's Arena Epic Alliances, an expandable tabletop game inspired by the popular mobile game Disney Sorcerer's Arena. Recruit from a battle-ready roster of Disney and Pixar heroes and villains. Sorcerer's Apprentice Mickey, Gaston, Aladdin, Demona, Sully, Dr. Felsier, Maleficent, and Ariel. Then combine the cards of your characters into a single deck. You take turns playing standard actions and cards from your hand to move your characters and attack opponents. If you knock out rival characters or occupy certain spaces near the center of the arena until your next turn, you score points. When a player reaches 20 points or runs out of cards in their deck, the game ends at the conclusion of that round, and whoever has the most points wins. The rules for Disney's Sorcerer's Arena Epic Alliances core set, say that 5 times fast, are spread out across 4 chapters, with each chapter building on what's come before to introduce players new skills, upgrades, and abilities over multiple games. Multiple expansions will be released for the game line to allow for more team combinations. Disney Sorcerer's Arena Epic Alliances is for 2 to 4 players, ages 13 and up. I'm actually a little surprised that it's that age range. Then again, it is Disney characters battling it out. They don't say it's to the death or anything, but they are battling it out. Game does play in around 35 minutes, carries an MSRP of $49.99. Should mention the fine folks over at the OP are sending along a review copy. So we are going to be taking a peek at this in the near future. Although, got to point out, if it shows up this month, it will be a standalone video because, of course, we are in the midst of the fantasy role-playing game celebration here on the Dispatch. So it's all role-playing games, all fantasy role-playing games. Kathy Evans has popped into chat. Kevin R. Smith is pointing out that they've got a tornado watch until 10, and that there was a tornado warning earlier that was distressingly close. Oh, yeah, I hate when that happens. We'll talk a little bit about tornadoes after the news here, because it is kind of that time of year, although nowadays it's always that time of year. It's winter and there's tornadoes. Russell Higgins is also hanging out with us in chat. So we got a nice chat off and running already. Moving right along, travel back to the days of wrestling yesteryear with all-time wrestling from Cation Arts and Funagain Distribution. Here's the skinny. Clack, zap, boom! A frightening roar echoes through the chambers of the arena. This is the sound of something sinister. This is a beast, grinding and twisting, bending the forces of the universe to the will of its master. A master who's obsessed with finding the definitive answer to the question, who is the greatest wrestler of all time? I'll leave it for you in chat and the comment section to tell me who you feel is the greatest wrestler of all time. Now, his beast, the world's only time machine, brings forward the very best champions of the past, present, and future generations. Legends who seek to cement their legacy as the best of all time. This is where legends collide. This is where your destiny awaits. All-Time Wrestling is a card and dice game that brings the fast-paced action and excitement of professional wrestling to your tabletop. With standard and advanced modes of play, ATW is accessible to gamers and non-gamers alike, using intuitive mechanisms that are reminiscent of your favorite wrestling games. Choose your champion from the legends of the past, present, and future, each with their own deck of attacks, abilities, signature moves, and finishers. Play your cards to unleash devastating combos, power bombs, and pile drivers, aerial stunts, and deadly submissions. But will the dice be in your favor? All-Time Wrestling, I know it's wrestling, but I'll say wrestling, like Russell did in chat, is for 2 players, ages 14 and up, plays in around 15 to 20 minutes, and will carry an MSRP of $49.99 when it arrives in Q4. So later this year, this is a late 2022 release. I understand in this core set, they've got, off the top of my head, I think it's British Bulldog, Andre the Giant. Now, I have seen Randy Macho Man Savage, but I think that might be in an expansion. Oh, yeah. Snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, God. That was not good for my throat. Ugh. But I believe there's like 6 real life wrestlers, and then there are a couple wrestlers who are supposed to be from the future. Thing that I find kind of strange is there's like this science fiction aspect to it. I would have thought if you're licensing these various different wrestlers, why not just make all-time great wrestling game? MC is with us in chat asking, is this a wrestling role-playing game? No, it's a board game. Although there is a wrestling role-playing game out there. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the title to it, but it's actually supposed to be pretty good. And it's all the background stuff going on. So you got all the different plot lines and things like that. I remember when I was in high school, they used to have Friday, I think it was called Friday Night Fights. And it was wrestling. And my friends and I, Elliot Miller, my best friend, I remember being at his house watching like the wrestling going. And it was, Andre the Giant and Rowdy Piper. I always liked him. He didn't seem like he took a lot of BS from anybody. Hulk Hogan, all of those. So there was a period for about, I don't know, a year or so that we were kind of into wrestling, but that was it. Never again. So it was like when I was 13 years old. I have had some friends who were big wrestling fans, and they are adults, and they blow a lot of money on the pay-per-views every week. So it's kind of like, okay, all right. Kabuki Kid says, Piper was fun. I'm not a wrestling fan, but he was my favorite. I'm here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum. So, Kabuki Kid Wrestling RPG, that's oddball. Actually, I heard it's really good. Like I said, I don't recall the title of it right off the top of my head, but there's expansions to it as well. There's supplements and things like that. 245 Triaxon says, I enjoyed They Live. Yeah, it was. It was a pretty decent movie. There's another Roddy Piper movie that's kind of like science fiction-y in that. I have never seen it, and it's supposed to be like real campy and kind of gonzo. And so Sarah D says they have a distinct memory of being a small child and watching Hulk Hogan get carried out of a match and crying because she thought he was dead. Ah! Ah! Oh no! Yeah, the funny thing is, even as teenagers, we knew it was fake. It was like, and I've known people over the years who were like, no, wrestling isn't fake. And it's like, what wrestling are you watching then? Because it's all fake. It's all entertainment. I'm not knocking people who enjoy it. Hey, it keeps you off the streets. Kenny Rodriguez is in chat with us. Welcome aboard. Hanging out with us tonight. All right, so let's jump on into some role-playing game news. Because last night I talked about the first Mutineer Zero role-playing game bundle of holding. Let's talk about the second bundle of holding that offers Mutineer Zero RPG goodness from Free League Publishing. Hey, wait up, mutant. This Mutineer Zero 2 bundle is the second of two offers in progress featuring the post-apocalyptic tabletop role-playing game Mutineer Zero, role-playing at the end of days from Free League Publishing. If you're new to MYZ, start with the revived July 2018 Mutineer Zero bundle in progress, which I talked about yesterday. Then expand your zone explorations with this new companion offer that adds recent source books and adventures. For just $19.95, you'll get all 5 titles in the 02 collection with a retail value of $80 as DRM-free PDFs, including the standalone expansions Mutant Mechatron, player character robots, and Mutant Elysium, life in a paranoid underground enclave. A la Fallout. You also get 2 Zone Compendium source books, Eternal War and Hotel Imperator. Eternal War, huh? Okay. War. War never changes. The epic campaign, The Grey Death, is also included in this. I heard good things about The Grey Death, which incorporates all of the Mutineer Zero expansions. These savings are going to run through July 27th. 10% of your payment, after gateway fees, of course, will be donated to this pandemic-related charity for this offer, which is Direct Relief. MC's like, war. Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again. It's Wednesday. I'm always a little goofier on Wednesdays. What's in this diet soda? This diet caffeine sodium-free soda? Just that. There's nothing. I don't drink or do anything else during or prior to the shows or after, really. Although I have to laugh because when we used to record the podcast more than a decade ago, I used to have a few cocktails out in Arizona before I sat down in front of the microphone with Elliot all the way back here in the Chicago area. So, but no, not anymore. MC says, Free League's just killing it lately. Yeah, they got a lot of good stuff going. That Blade Runner Kickstarter just wrapped up. You can still get on board through the late pledge as well. MC says they're afraid Free League might be getting dangerously close to oversaturation. The thing I'm a little concerned about with Free League Publishing is that they've got their irons in so many fires that they're not going to be releasing enough content to keep people satisfied with their current offerings. So I know there are a lot of people out there, they're wondering where's the more Twilight 2000 stuff, or where's more Forbidden Lands. So more aliens. So yeah, I kind of see where you're coming with that. I think at the moment they are mainly focused on 5e Symborum and the One Ring. I think those are their big IPs that they're currently focused on. But they're pretty good about spreading some love for their games. There's a lot of games that are kind of flying under the radar, which are really good, like Vossen. I think, if I remember right, I think that's how it's pronounced. Vossen, some people call it. So we shall see. Available in print and PDF is the Sword and Caravan setting book. And here's the latest from Mad Scribe Games. Sword and Caravan is an OSR setting book for playing a historically accurate fantasy campaign set in the East along the region known as the Silk Road at the turn of the 12th and 13th centuries. So that's kind of funny. Historically accurate fantasy campaign. Sort of like, don't seem to go together, right? I know what they're trying to say, though. This historic campaign's timeline is set amid the turbulent era between the Third Crusade and the Mongol invasions. This marked Europe's earliest period of post-classical interaction with the East. As players, you may decide to take on the roles of crusaders, merchants, or explorers, traveling to ancient and mysterious lands. Alternatively, you may choose from any number of unique character concepts native to those lands. With a detailed gazetteer of every region along the Silk Road, with the Crusader states and the Muslim world to China. Sword and Caravan gives you everything you need to explore the history and varied cultures of a region filled with war, intrigue, commerce, and conquest. This book includes new classes and magical techniques, guidelines and mechanics on merchant commerce, social interactions, law, and justice. Historically accurate bestiary of medieval monsters local to the setting, magic items inspired by the myths and legends of every culture in the region, and abundant adventure seeds that game masters can use to hook players. There's random tables and generators also to help create encounters with an authentic world feeling. Although Sword and Caravan is designed for play with any OSR system, it's especially attuned for play with the Lion and Dragon medieval authentic RPG. The 125-page Sword and Caravan is available right now from Drive-Thru RPG as a print-on-demand hardcover with PDF for $54.99, in softcover with PDF for $44.99, or you can grab just the PDF alone for $14.99. So there you go. And yes, this is written by RPG Pundit. And strangely enough, it's being released through a different company. It's not through his own. So I'm like, Tessie Trekky's asking, is this an RPG Pundit product? It is. And yes, I know there are people who do not like RPG Pundit. I'm just sharing a news piece of something that I stumbled across and thought looked interesting. Remember, we've talked about this before. Me sharing coverage of something or sharing a news piece, first look, a review is not necessarily any sort of like thumbs up for the authors or publishers. All righty. So Kevin says he usually uses medieval authentic for his product descriptions. Wonder why he changed it. I don't know. I think this is more along the lines it's because it's the East. I don't know. Zero theories with us. As long as it's gluten-free, hey, that's all that matters, right? Make sure it's gluten-free, low on carbs. Yeah, we'll make sure. So the thing that I thought was kind of interesting about this is that I don't know anybody out there has read or listened to the audiobook, which well, I think it's Andre Brower, if I remember correctly, does the audiobook. Gentlemen of the Road by Michael Chabon. And very, very cool book. It is kind of he wanted to do like a Middle East Fafhrd and Grey Mouser kind of story. And he pulls it off. He really does. He pulls it off. He does. It's really pretty cool. And of course, the audiobook is excellent. MC says, yeah, RPG Pundit is a bit of a person. Yeah, like I said, just sharing a news piece, everybody. I'm not, I'm not backing somebody politically or anything like that. Although, once again, I've heard the Lion and Dragon OSR RPG is very good as well. I think it's very well received by a lot of people. So, Kabuki Kid says, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, that's wild. Yes. Okay, and this is how Michael Chabon described his approach to the book. I this is a quote, okay? Don't be like, oh, Jeff, I can't believe you said that. He said he wanted to write a book. It was Jews with Swords. And he said he was joking around that was going to be the title of the book. So, actually, Michael Chabon is one of the, or Chabon, I think is how it's pronounced, one of the executive producers on Star Trek Picard, unfortunately. All righty. So let's move on to the final news piece because there are 2 new volumes that are available for Castles and Crusades. Here's the latest on the NPC Almanac Sketches and NPC Almanac The Register from Troll Lord Games. As far as sketches, the NPC is an essential part of any role-playing game, and Castles and Crusades is no exception. NPCs play a variety of roles, from the barkeep at the tavern that passes on juicy rumors for a few coins, to the well-paid henchman who drags the wounded character to safety and healing. The Almanac contains a collection of long and short NPC entries, both class-based and hirelings or adherents. These NPC entries include all the info you need to place the NPC in your game and begin play. They contain name completed, description, a little background, gender, appearance, personality, hook, alignment, and we're called for level to hit points, armor class, primary attributes, secondary attributes, armor, weapons, and special info. With hundreds of NPCs presented, it's the perfect resource for your role-playing game. The 224-page softcover is available for $29.99, or you can grab the PDF over at Drive Through RPG, English, Jeff. Use those words, English, Jeff. For $19.99. The Register consists of a series of tables for scores of NPCs, both class-based, hirelings, and adherents. These NPC entries include all the info you need to place them in the game. With over 1,200 NPCs presented, It is the perfect resource for your role playing game. So, the register is actually a companion piece to sketches. So, you really should get both of them together. The 288-page softcover is also available for $29.99, or you can grab the PDF at Drive-Thru RPG for $19.99. Sweet. The funny thing is, that is something that throws a lot of game masters off, and it is creating NPCs. It really does. I've never really had that much of an issue, but I'm the first to admit I'm not somebody who stats out every NPC by any stretch of the imagination. The vast majority of NPCs that my players run across, I do not have stats for. I might have 3 bullet points about that character. But anyway, all right. So there is some discussion about RPG Pundit. Kevin says that Pundit's products seem to be pretty good and free of political statements. It's Twitter and YouTube where he gets obnoxious. MC says they wouldn't buy any of the products due to his outspoken politics. I don't give my money to chuds. I don't blame you. I don't blame you whatsoever. But as I have said before, I think people understand if you watch the stream, if you watch the videos, if you follow the gaming gang, you know where my political affiliations are. You know what side of the fence I come down on many issues. But the thing is, I'm not here to gatekeep anybody out of this hobby. So there are people who are to the right, to the left, dead center politically. They all have a right to be part of our hobby. And sorry to say, there are a lot of people who are on my side of the fence who are always talking about diversity and inclusion, and they are the first ones to say, "Oh, we gotta get these people out of the hobby. We gotta kick these people out." You're not playing with them anyway. They're not sitting at your table. What's the big deal? So, yeah, is what it is. So, Coco the Owl Bear. Coco the Owl Bear's with us. Used to be Coco B, but now it's Coco the Owl Bear, who is featured prominently in Pathfinder Absalom City of Lost Omens, which I reviewed last night. I think that's where Coco came up with the owl bear. So Coco says, meh, I feel Pundit plays into his online persona and revels in being that guy. I'm right with you on that. I truly believe that. Because there are people like that. There are unfortunately, there are people in our hobby that, you watch the videos and things like that. It's a persona that they put on. Now, there are some people out there, I guarantee you, that's who they are in real life. I mean, at least that's my read on them. I guess I can't like 100% guarantee it. People like Seth Skirkowski, I always mess up his last name. He strikes me, you know what? If you were sitting at a game table with him, that is how he is. If you were sitting there drinking a beer with him, that is how he is. There are other people that I have had beers with that I'm like, okay, that is definitely not how you come across online. MC says, love Seth. Yeah, like I said, he seems like he's a pretty good guy. Seems like a pretty nice guy. And he tackles a couple of RPGs. Well, actually, he's branched out a little bit more. But he tackles a couple of RPGs that really deserve the attention. Call of Cthulhu and Traveler. So, Kevin asks, I wonder how much of his shtick is clickbait. Of course, obviously, talking about RPG Pundit. I don't know. I think I saw a video of his 2, 3 years ago. I was just like, whatever. You sound angry, man. It's like you're very angry. Got to remember, this is just games, man. Just having fun. Just games. All right, that is it for the news tonight. Keep in mind, I was talking about Drive-Through RPG. The gaming gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit Drive-Through RPG, DM's Guild, Storyteller's Vault, whatever, be sure to swing by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. All those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, if you like what we do, you can always buy me a cup of coffee or some soda. I swear this is really soda. By swinging on over to paypal.me/gaminggang and making a small donation. And all that is very, very much appreciated, everybody. Thank you very kindly. So Simeon says that they got their copy of, I'm taking a guess, it's Chris Spivey's Harlem supplement for Call of Cthulhu. Got it signed, or they picked it up. Oh yeah, okay, got a copy of it. Yes, Harlem Unbound, right? Isn't that it? Harlem Unbound. It's awesome. It's excellent. Second edition, that's actually through Chaosium Inc. Even better than the original, and the original is awesome as well. So Russell Higgins says they're just here to hang around by the Tempest machine at the concession stand. The Tempest video game? Is that it? So, two things. One, I had mentioned, because Kevin said that there's a tornado alert or warning in his area. I have on 3 occasions been really close to a tornado. And once I actually saw it. And I actually worked at a mall at the time. So, but it was a huge mall. It was one of the biggest, I think it's the second biggest mall in America behind Mall of America. But I think it still counts as like the largest retail space, because Mall of America is big because they've got like the amusement park in the center of it. I don't know if they still do. I've never been to it. So anyway, so it was a huge mall. So I was probably going to be okay, but we actually saw the basic beginnings of the tornado and the funnel, and it was actually vertical, horizontal. I should say vertical. It wasn't vertical yet. It was horizontal, and it was like, whoa, shit. I out here where I live now had tornado go fairly close, a couple miles. And then when I lived in Indiana, I had only been out there a couple of months. And one evening, I mean, it was pouring rain. And of course, the klaxons go off and everything, and the power goes out, and it's night. So it's like how are you going to see anything? And of course, I had my 2 cats at the time, who are both no longer with us. And it was like, okay, all right. So I got a comforter, and I went, and I was on the 2nd floor of an apartment building, and it only had 2 floors. And I took the comforter, we got in the tub. It's like, not that I don't think that would have helped a whole lot with a plastic tub. Kevin says their house was hit by a tornado in 2019. 19 and just moved back in last year. Wow, it's awful. Awful. Simeon is in northern Ontario. Never had the pleasure of a tornado. I don't know if there's a lot of pleasure to that. It's pretty scary. I have seen some tornadoes in the distance driving when I used to deliver RVs around the country. So anyway, other thing I was going to mention is on yesterday's show, I talked about how yesterday was the 1 year anniversary of me undergoing a triple bypass, and talked about that a little bit. And thank you very much, everybody out there, for your kind thoughts. Some people have sent me some emails. Other people have said hi on Twitter or commented here on YouTube. Thank you. It's much appreciated. I feel good. I mean, I like I said last night, I didn't feel bad before it. I do need to lose more weight though. But I did want to share a picture. This was actually the first time I came down into the duct tape studios following the surgery. So I took a look at the date on this. This was from the 15th of June. So it was a little more than a week after I'd had the surgery, and I was down here doing some Windows updates. I wasn't filming anything because my voice was still like kind of like this. I couldn't really talk that well because the tube. And this is what I look like. There you go. Kind of pale, kind of gaunt. You can see the scar pretty easily there. And the weirdest thing, now it depends on what device you're watching this on. If you look down at the lower left corner, you'll see on my arm I've got like bruising. And it was so weird. So I so I had a um I had IVs all over the place. So, but I had an IV that ran into my wrist and all the and down, right? So it was so weird because all along this vein, I had this really gross, like bruising, and oh, it just looked awful. It was like, oh my god, my arm is zombifying. It's like it looked terrible. It was freaky looking. I didn't mind the scar. I was like, okay, it comes with the territory. Funny enough, I'm actually wearing the same shirt as I wore in that picture. And the funny thing is, I just threw the shirt on, and then when I was putting everything together for tonight's show, I was like, oh wow, I'm wearing the same shirt as that picture. Simeon says the hat looks bigger. It may have been. Mr. Eddie T says they're glad my ticker is still working. It is so far. Knock on wood. But yeah, I gotta drop like 15 pounds. Gotta drop about 15 pounds. And the thing is, we're gonna be walking a whole lot at Comic Con. So in about a week, I'm gonna start walking a lot outside as long as it's not crappy out to kind of work my way up to Comic Con. And of course, after that is Gen Con. We don't walk as much at Gen Con, but it's not unusual for us to put in like 17 miles walking at, at Comic Con. And speaking of Comic Con, Elliot Miller, my best friend, is going to Comic Con with us. So the gang is together for San Diego Comic Con. It'll be Elliot, my brother Greg, and our friend David. So the four of us are going to be at Comic Con. It's pretty wild. And then, of course, a couple of weeks later, Elliot and I, my nephew Cameron, and Elliot's son Brian will all be at Gen Con as well. Kabuki Kid says, yeah, glad the surgery did its job. Me too. I have to go and have just like a follow, well, not really a follow up. Going in for echogram in early August. But yeah, just want to take a peek, see what's going on. All right, so that's it. Tonight, I am going to be taking a look at Original Adventures Reincarnated Volume 3, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, and sharing my thoughts about it. But first, it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Anytime the going gets too hectic, it's a good idea to stop for refreshment. And what could be more refreshing than delicious, ice-cold Coca-Cola?
I've got 5 aces. Can you beat that? I've got a can of Wilkins coffee. Nothing beats Wilkins.
So you were waiting for the Wilkins and Wonkins violence. Sitting there having a smoke, playing poker. I got 5 aces. You Wonkins, you cheating bastard, you. Zero Theory says, wake up to a bang with Wilkins coffee. I gotta say, I don't think they all exist that you can check out anymore. But if I remember right, I think Jim Henson did 179 of those little stingers for Wilkins coffee. Now you can see other brands where they repeat the same gags, which I thought is kind of interesting. So it's like Kreml Milk. There's a bread company. They do quite a few. There's another coffee company that they did. So Jacob Getty is with us in chat. Welcome aboard. Once again, we got a pretty good crowd. MC says, I love the Wilkins ads. They're hilarious. They are funny. That's why I share them. I try to share one every intermission. I bet there was a couple of people out there, or there will be, who watch this after the fact, wondering, hey, this intermission's going long. Are we going to get a Wilkins commercial or no? You got your commercial. All right. So tonight I am going to be reviewing and paging through Original Adventures Reincarnated Volume 3, Dungeons and Dragons, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks from Goodman Games. The original adventure was written by Gary Gygax, or if you want to be official, Gary Gygax. The conversion is written by Michael Curtis with Tim Wadzinski. The unmistakable Errol Otis provides the cover artwork. This 400-page hardcover carries an MSRP of $49.99. So let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. Few things I do want to point out. First of all, this was not sent to me by Goodman Games. This is not a review copy. I had someone who likes the show send me all 6 of the current original adventures Reincarnated out of the blue. Just sent them along. Sent me an email, asked me where they could send them, and then they said they did not want anybody to know who they were. I said, okay. Tell you one thing, I can guarantee you it's not RPG Pundit. So don't worry about that. Anyway, so I don't have to go through the shtick about, okay, none of us got a additional compensation because it's not a review copy. So I'm also going to stay picture in picture up here as we take a peek through. So I'm going to cut off a little bit of the upper left portion of the book. We're not going to look at each and every page, but I do want to give you a good feel for the original module as well as the 5e conversion of this. And a lot of it is a conversion. I'm going to discuss that as well. But we're not going to look at each and every page, just so you know. Also, this is an adventure. And yes, the original module came out in 1980. I owned it. I had it. I remember having it. Never ran it. Never played in it either. But I always thought it was a pretty fascinating adventure. That even my fledgling game master brain back then was concocting some pretty cool things in my head. So I remember that very, very well. All right, let's take a look at the back here. Oh, I was going to say, even though this came out in 1980, there are going to be some spoilers. I'm going to try to avoid as many spoilers as possible, but there's going to be some. So if you're hoping that your game master is going to pick this up and run it, I definitely recommend tuning into the next show. See ya. Thanks for stopping on by. All right. Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, an adventure for character levels 8 to 12. From a mysterious cave high in the Barrier Peaks, they come, savage raiders of unknown origin, laying waste to castle and keep, leaving no survivors. The land is in turmoil, and only a band of stalwart heroes dares to launch an expedition into the soaring mountains to stamp out this vile menace. What they discover in those lofty peaks is something beyond their comprehension, a danger spawned from the very stars above. A crashed spaceship, damn it, spoilers, buried for centuries beneath the Barrier Peaks, has awoken, and now its alien inhabitants, crazed robots, eerie androids, and even stranger things, endanger the world. The adventurers must confront these threats and navigate the unearthly interior of the wrecked starship, puzzling over and mastering alien technology to defeat their foes. If you've ever had the urge to zap an Umber Hulk with a laser rifle while commanding a robotic servant, this adventure is for you. All righty, let's jump on in. So one of the things I was going to point out is that this copy is pretty dinged up. And I know when we were doing first looks at the 6 different volumes, of course, Temple of Elemental Evil is a slipcase. So that was not damaged. But all the rest of the books are kind of dinged up. And some people had pointed out that they probably came from Amazon. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I bet you're right. Because whenever I get books off of Amazon, they're supposed to be brand new. They look like they've been drop kicked all over the place. All right, so we're going to jump on in. We do have quite a few different artists. Let's give them a little bit of credit here. Take a moment out with our interior artists throughout. I'd read their names, but I'd probably butcher the vast majority of them, so we don't want that to take place. So about the first 16 pages or so are some short articles kind of looking back at different people's experience with Expedition to the Barrier Peak. So Michael Curtis, who does the main conversion of this over to 5e, talks about it. We get Errol Otis talking about it, painting the frog hemoth. Not even going to try to pronounce that last name. But we get some folks who were involved with TSR back in the day as well. So this is how all of the original adventures Reincarnated start off. There is actually also an article at the end in one of the appendices, which I thought was kind of strange. You would think it would be up here, and it's actually about Metamorphosis Alpha, which that's what this adventure was to begin with. I had an inkling of that for years, but seeing that I actually had never read Metamorphosis Alpha, I've never actually seen any of the copies. But I did have a vibe that that's what this adventure actually started off as, and it's true. And it's kind of interesting because you can kind of tell from the layout of the ship. Simeon says, pro tip when ordering off Amazon, get the gift wrapping for $5. That way a human handles it before shipping, and the wrapper bag helps protect it in transit. I've had people also tell me, make sure that you order multiple items at the same time, including your book, because they'll usually put it in a box with the other stuff. And I'm like, I don't know how protective that is. So we're going to dive in. We're going to get to take a peek at the 32-page original adventure, as well as the 32-page additional images, the handouts that came with this adventure as well. So essentially what's going on, the player characters are going to be assisting. If I remember correctly, it's the Duchy of Jeff. Funny thing is, I remember when I first saw that, I didn't know that that was an alternate spelling of Jeff, Geoff. I thought it was Geoff for years. Till I was probably 20 years old. Yes, it's the Duchy of Geoff. If I remember correctly, doesn't that also play a role in the Giants? I could have swore it's also the Duchy of Jeff. Kabuki Kid says Geoff. LOL. Yeah, well, you know what? I was a kid. I didn't run across anybody who spelled their name. The biggest deal with my name, because it's Jeffrey, and people would spell it ERY. That was it. It's Jeffrey, it's not Jeffrey. And when I would see Geoff, I was like, Geoff? What is that? All right, so as you can see, we're getting the reproduction, font, everything, same as the original. And the player characters find themselves in this crashed spaceship. Now, in the original adventure, they've only got 4 days to explore the ship because this was an Origins tournament module. This was a tournament that was run at the second Origins convention. And strangely enough, usually, at least in my opinion, I find tournament modules to be kind of shitty. Just being honest, I am not a fan of Tomb of Horrors. I do not like Tomb of Horrors at all. In fact, I was happy when I heard that the 7th edition of Original Adventures Reincarnated was not going to be Tomb of Horrors. So I was like, yes, I don't mind that it's not TSR. I'm just glad it's not Tomb of Horrors. But this is actually pretty good. This is pretty interesting. It is, of course, old school. This is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So you're looking at role-playing adventures in the late 1970s, early 1980s. I think this was a tournament in 78. I don't think it was 79. MC says, yeah, Tomb of Horrors is way trolly. Yeah, Kabuki Kid says it can be fun if the dungeon master tweaks stuff to make it more reasonable. Yes, that's one of the things, and it's especially tournament modules that Gygax wrote are just like meat grinders. They usually don't have any sort of dungeon ecology to them. It's just sort of like, oh, it's a funhouse adventure, which doesn't necessarily make things bad. Just usually not very good. So one of the big deals with Expedition to the Barrier Peaks is the player characters are going to encounter all this future tech, all this science, all these science fiction gadgets and robots and different creatures and things like that. And they have to figure out how to use this stuff. And a lot of the weapons don't necessarily look like they're weapons. And a good dungeon master should be able to have a lot of fun, and the players should have a really good time as well, screwing around, trying to figure out what this stuff does and is. I will point out that the maps for the 5e conversion, I like them better than the original maps. Just keyed a little bit differently. One thing also to keep in mind is that run as written with the original module, and we will actually get 2 editions of it. So here are the different images. We'll get a closer look at the various handouts for the 5e conversion. But one of the big aspects of this adventure to me is just the weirdness. And it's not super gonzo. Don't get me wrong. This isn't a gonzo adventure, but there is some like very weird science fiction tech that looks silly now. So, but you got to keep in mind too that there's if played as written, there's going to be a lot of empty space. There are a lot of empty rooms on the 4 different decks of the ship. There's also the between decks as well, that really not a whole lot happens. But this was also a module that came out that was very divisive for people because we joke about this all the time. Oh, you got science fiction in my fantasy. You got fantasy in my science fiction. People would get really worked up about that. They did not want SF in their fantasy, and they didn't want fantasy in their Traveler and things like that. People aren't, I don't think, people are as sensitive now simply because we have so much fantasy and science fiction entertainment out there. Back in the day, back when this came out, you didn't have a whole lot. There wasn't much outside of course, literature. You didn't have a lot of science fiction TV shows. You certainly didn't have a lot of good science fiction movies. So this can be a very interesting, time-sensitive adventure. Another aspect that you also want to keep in mind is, so here's some of the weapons that don't necessarily look like weapons. And the players are going to get a handout where it looks like that. It doesn't show a hand on it. It just shows this. But you don't want to use this adventure for like stocking your player characters up with all this high tech, oh no, you got nukes now. So Kevin says the weird thing is that the Blackmore and Greyhawk campaigns mixed science fiction and fantasy freely. They did, especially Arneson's Blackmore, as far as I've heard. He did a lot of kind of gonzo stuff with that as well. Kabuki Kid says that they did most of the S modules back in the day as one-shots. So there was no need to worry about ruining existing characters with crazy tech or whatnot. Well, the original module is kind of set up where the players only have 4 days to explore because they've got all these men-at-arms and things like that, or waiting for them outside, and they're going to leave. So there is a time component to the original adventure. Michael Curtis kind of picks up on that in the conversion for the module, and kind of talks about how you can do something where the like energy core of the ship is going to explode, and the player characters are warned of an impending disaster, although not in a language that they'll understand. So I like that. I kind of like that as well. So now we get into the 5e conversion for Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. And Michael Curtis is really well known, especially for those out there who play Dungeon Crawl Classics. Michael Curtis has written some of the best DCC adventures that have come out. He and Harley Stroh are really well known for their adventures. So he has done a really good job with this. But I do have some issues. So first off, we have a lot more fleshing out of the adventure. There's the area around the ship, and we've got additional encounters that have been added in as well. And I love it. Only problem is they're not with the main portion of the adventure, which I thought was very bizarre. It's as if they're tied into having to present the adventure the same way, in like almost like the same order as the original module. And that just, for one, doesn't make a lot of sense. And two, more importantly, makes this a far more difficult book to use at the table. And that is one of the issues that I have a huge problem with Wizards of the Coast not allowing any 5e materials that they license out in PDF. And it's all, oh, piracy. Oh, pirates. We don't want pirates. Well, obviously enough, the pirates release every single Dungeons and Dragons release from Wizards of the Coast. I mean, sometimes the pirated copies, which are coming from retailers, by the way, because they're the ones who have it early. It's not reviewers, it's retailers. And they actually take the book apart and scan it. And it's either out before it hits stores or it's out the day of release. So this whole nonsense about, oh, we don't want to do PDFs, so piracy is ridiculous. And that actually carries over to this as well. Goodman Games, I guarantee they'd love to sell PDFs of this. They can't. They are not allowed to through the licensing they've got with Wizards of the Coast. But here's the oddball thing. You can go over and buy the digital edition of the original module over at Drive-Thru RPG and DM's Guild. So what's the point? It doesn't make any sense to me, at least, whatsoever, because the whole anti-piracy thing is bullshit. Because they know the pirates are out there. I got in trouble with Wizards of the Coast. They were not happy with me because I did a first look at, I think, if I remember right, I think it was Rime of the Frost Maiden. And I sat there talking. It was, just a first look. And I was talking, blah, blah, blah. And I was paging through like this. And I did actually page through each page, but it was at a very fast clip, like so. And then I'd stop and talk about something, what have you, right? Well, they were very upset about that because they felt pirates were being able to screenshot the video. And I actually talked to somebody from Wizards of the Coast PR company, because WotC doesn't do their own PR. They have somebody else for D&D and then another company for Magic the Gathering. And I told them that you got to be kidding me, because there were pirated copies of it already out that had been torn apart and scanned, and you'd have thought they were professional digital copies that came from Wizards of the Coast, and they did not. And I'm like, give me a break. Who's going to sit there, and sit there and screen shoot a video that was not all that clear? And it was like, okay. But I just don't think the whole can't allow Goodman Games to do a PDF makes any sense. In fact, Michael Curtis even mentions in this adventure the book you're holding or a digital file on your tablet or phone. It's like even Michael Curtis didn't know that they weren't going to be able to do a PDF of this, I guess. Anyway, so for me, this makes this a much more difficult book to use at the table. Plus, we've got all these handouts as well. So there are no digital files for the handouts that are available to my knowledge. So now it becomes, what are you going to do? You're going to take pictures on your phone and then print them out? Or are you going to try to lay this down on your scanner and scan them? So I know it's out of Goodman Games' hands, so I'm not dinging this because of that. I'm just pointing out, to me, it's ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense. That said, this book is not laid out. Even if you had a PDF, you would still have to be flipping all over the place in order to utilize the 5e conversion, especially with all the extra content. So we start getting into like kind of the core of the adventure. Like I said, I like these maps better, obviously, than the original maps. But we have pretty much the presentation of the original module, just statted for 5e. A little different than what we've seen with other original adventures, Reincarnated, where they've actually included the additional material right there in the book. So this was a little bit different. We'll point out that the paper quality is very nice. There is a little bit of a gloss to the pages. So this should hold up to repeated use at the table. So we get an alternate ending. This is where we're talking about what I was talking about, where it's like the warp engine's gonna blow. See, and now we get into the crash site environs. So this is the area around the ship. So this is adventuring that you could be doing as the player characters are approaching the ship. Now, the 5e conversion is actually for 4 to 8 characters, levels 5 to 10. The original adventure is levels 8 to 12. So right there, it just kind of goes to show you that the survivability, the power level of 5e characters is vastly different than those of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So we get some really interesting new content, some new encounters. There's even a like virtual reality on the ship. There's like a virtual reality lounge that the players actually can play a fantasy adventure in the VR lounge. It's kind of like a little mini dungeon that I thought that was kind of interesting. So, as you can see, we got a lot of additional content. So then we get some additional encounters, and they're kind of broken up by the different areas on the different levels. And this would have been far more useful if these had been inserted where we could have used them in the kind of the conversion portion of the book. I'm not sure who made that editing decision, but I don't find it to be a good one. But that said, the content is good. So here we get some appendices. So this is the virtual reality adventure within the adventure. We have bestiary with a lot of creatures that have obviously not been in 5e. Not a lot of images, though. We get the new tech. Some of the future tech is kind of creaky, but still. So Kabuki Kid says they're making the Dungeon Master work, I guess, to keep it pure. I don't know. You're already doing a conversion. So who cares about keeping it, pure? Like I said, the previous original adventures Reincarnated didn't do this to such an extent. And once again, we're seeing an increase in the page count as well. And as these page counts increase, the usability at the table is actually going down. Zero Theory says Buck Rogers would love those guns. All right, so I got to find here we go. Here's the image that I always remember. And those of you who have seen the original module will no doubt remember this as well. So we got the little bunny creature sitting on the stump. Aw, and I got to admit, I think this was kind of an homage to Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I think it was. And then, of course, it turns out it's really this. Dun, dun, dun. This is kind of a dummy. This thing is a mouth. It's gonna suck you in and chew you up. So once again, we get all the handouts. We have some additional images as well. So these are some of the weapons. Once again, it's kind of like, what is that? Yes, Kabuki Kid says it's the holy hand grenade of Antioch. Oh, Robert Stew coming up. Run away, flee, run away. Here we go. So remember, we were looking at this is actually a laser pistol. So we saw, for of course in the module itself, a hand holding this, but this is what the player characters get to see. I think this was the second time that TSR had included a booklet of handouts with a D&D adventure, which I thought was great. It was funny just looking through this. I remembered a bunch of the different images, like this with the worms all embedded, like burrowing into Thor. So it's like, Zero Theory says, don't mistake it for a TV, the laser pistol. See, that's the other thing that's pretty fun about this adventure too, is the players have to kind of learn how to utilize this technology. And it's super easy to accidentally turn this stuff onto yourself. So Kabuki Kid says, rot grubs. All right, then we get into some maps. Always like the Goodman Games maps. Always think it's pretty cool. And then we get an article about Metamorphosis Alpha, which I found to be pretty interesting as well. Then we get a little advertising for 5th edition fantasy. All right, so that is Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, Volume 3 of the original adventures Reincarnated from Goodman Games. I'm going to swing on over to the other camera so I can provide you with my final thoughts and a review score. Kabuki Kid says Metamorphosis Alpha is fun, very deadly. Oh, I heard it's extremely deadly when you have James Ward run it. I've heard some stories at conventions where it's like, oh my goodness. All right. So I like this conversion. There's a lot to recommend this to people. Once again, it's got the 2 editions of the original module. I think that's kind of a waste. I understand this isn't just a game book. There are people out there who pick these up as coffee table books. Okay, I understand it's kind of a collector's item, but still, there aren't that many changes between the 2 editions of the original module that's in here. The 5e conversion is really, really well done by Michael Curtis. I hate the fact that all the additional content, the adventuring around the ship, additional encounters aren't included within the 5e converted module. It makes no sense to me. Also, it's not Goodman Games' fault, but I think it's ridiculous that Wizards of the Coast will not allow them to sell a PDF legally of this adventure. Remember, we were talking about piracy? Do you think you can find a PDF of this? Anyway, I definitely recommend Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. In some ways, the original Adventure series, Reincarnated series, has improved over the first 3 volumes. And then the editing has kind of taken a step backwards, unfortunately. And that is not Michael Curtis's fault. It's the editing team. I can recommend this. I like it. Once again, it's an old D&D module that I had, and I remember reading through. Never ran it, never played it, but it still holds a nice little nostalgic place in my heart. On a scale of 0 to 10, I give Original Adventures Reincarnated Volume 3, Dungeons & Dragons, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, an 8 out of 10. Even with my quibbles, I think it's really good, and I certainly do recommend picking it up if you have any interest in a 5th edition version of this classic adventure, which is, I think, in the top 10 in the 30 greatest Dungeons and Dragons adventures ever written. I think it's top 10. I know it's in the 30, but I could have swore it's in the top 10 maybe. All right, so that is it for tonight's show. So what's cooking next week? Well, as I mentioned, we're supposed to be seeing some Castles and Crusades stuff. So I don't know when that's going to arrive. But on Monday's show, because I figure what we'll probably end up doing is probably devoting a week to Castles and Crusades, because I've always heard some good stuff about it. So if they send along like Player's Handbook, GM's Guide, Bestiary, something like that, we'll look at those 3 core books that week. But on Monday's show, we're going to take a look at Tome of Heroes from Kobold Press. This just showed up out of the blue. So we're going to take a peek at this. on Monday's show. Next week, I am also going to be reviewing Original Adventures Reincarnated Volume 4, one of my all-time favorite Dungeons and Dragons modules, The Lost City. So that'll be next week as well. Kevin says Castles and Crusades is kind of fun. Disclaimer, they've only played in a one-shot at a local con. One thing that I have heard about CNC, a big selling point is it's supposed to be, there's supposed to be a lot of options for the player characters, which players love. Game Masters, not so much, because a lot of stuff that they got to try to remember. But I've heard that you can essentially take any D&D adventure from basic through 3rd edition and port it over rather easily. That is what I have heard. So Kabuki Kid says, Lost City, yeah, classic. Like I said, it is one of my favorites. So I will review that next week. All right. So if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. I'll also inform you when I upload other videos, such as my upcoming first look at the Guild of Merchant Explorers from AEG. This will be up this weekend. I'll have some other stuff popping up as well. All right. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you took part in chat, big tip of the cap. I apologize when I'm doing a review. A lot of times I'm not looking at chat a whole lot. So I'm sure there are quite a few people who might have popped in, said hello that I didn't say hi. I tried to say hello. So forgive me on that one. Anyway, I know a lot of people, though, they don't have an opportunity to watch this live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. If you take time out of your busy life to watch any of these videos on the Gaming Gang channel, it means a lot to me. Thank you very, very much. Always appreciated. All righty. So that is it for this week. Once again, I'll be back on Monday. We'll be looking at Tome of Heroes from Kobold Press. And of course, here's hoping each and every one of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.
Oh, hey, you're still here. Well, if that's the case, by all means, subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel by clicking right here. Check out the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch, or find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for watching.